Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and thank you for joining me today. You'll see that I got something a little bit special here, and I may or may not have um, maybe said I would never own this bottle because of its price. What I'm talking about is the Wyoming Whiskey 10th Anniversary Edition, just released in the last couple of months in 2022. So, Wyoming Whiskey started as a distillery in 2012. My wife and I actually accidentally stumbled on it when we were here visiting on vacation in Wyoming in 2012 in the Bighorn Mountains. It was so new they didn't actually have any product for you to sample yet, and we just showed up like, hey, let's get to the tour, and we got the tour, but we didn't get to taste anything. They didn't have anything. They had literally just started barreling that month, and they also uh, released their first batch of whiskey like after 3 years or 2 years, something. I think it was 2 years, and it was not good. And they had a very bad reputation and name right out of the gate because they released it too early. And it's amazing what marketing will do because they put out a really good marketing campaign and they saved the rest of their stuff for 5 years total. And they're small batch. If you get their Wyoming whiskey small batch, their mainstay, I only have this 375, but their mainstay small batch Wyoming whiskey, they got pretty large distribution. Chances are you can find it near you. 88 proof, 44%. Excellent whiskey at 5 years. But at 2 years, not very good. And so they kind of had a little hump, a little hiccup in the beginning. And ever since they started releasing their 5 year small batch, they've been hitting the ground running and haven't looked back since. One of my favorite distilleries now. If you guys are fans of Rex and Daniel down in Texas, in Austin, Texas, there with the Whiskey Tribe, Whiskey Vault. In fact, they're kind of the reason why I even started this channel. And if you look in the description, you'll see I always link to them. I'm big fans of theirs. Their Crowded Barrel Distillery actually got a barrel of whiskey from Wyoming Whiskey Distillery, and they took that and I think they aged it or they did something to it and then released it in their Crowded Barrel. I'm not sure which release it was, but if you look into it, you'll be able to find that out pretty easily. And they are consistently saying how much they're big fans of Wyoming whiskey, as am I. Have not had a bad product since. If you watch any of my reviews, you will see that I've had, I think, 3 private stock, like store pick ones. I have not had a bad one yet. And man, they're in some pretty high proofs. They're excellent. Um, Also, their double cask, one of our favorites. Now, I haven't had any of their like National Park series or their Outrider or like they have single barrels now. I can find a single barrel here in town for about $83. A little bit pricey, but not anywhere near as pricey as this one was. So my wife was recently in Casper and saw this in the display case up front, and it was the choice was this or the Bunnahabhain 18. The Bunnahabhain 18 was only I hate using those words, was $152. This was $175. It was $174.99. Very expensive, right? Very expensive for a bourbon. But because it is an anniversary release, I told her, like I said, I said I'll leave it up to you. Choose whatever you want, whatever desire you have. The one thing I will say is an anniversary release, and when it's gone, it's gone. We were there at the beginning. 10 years later now, we can kind of see it full circle. And I said, it's very expensive, but it's one of those things that it's kind of cool, right? And the Bunnahabhain 18, that's just always cool. But she ended up buying this on her own discretion, and you know what? I'm pretty intrigued by it. So it's the 10th year anniversary. She opened her up and gave her a try there without me, unfortunately. It's sitting at 51.7 ABV, 103.4 proof. It was, let's see here, master distiller is Steve Nally, and Nancy Fraley, the nose, she actually was the master blender on this project. So, it's just kind of, it's a limited edition. It's pretty nice. Extremely expensive. Would love to see it for a lot less, 100, even 100 and a quarter. Um, Seems like it would be expensive. It is expensive, but, it'd be nice. But, Nancy, I believe, just left where she was. Golly, what distillery was she working with? I don't know. Check out Nancy Fraley, anyways. She has a great reputation in the whiskey industry. If you're not already familiar with her, she's behind some of the best blends out there. Um, and I'm hoping to get to meet her soon at some point in the next couple of years here. But there you go. Wyoming Whiskey. They make great whiskey. Now they're in Kirby, Wyoming, which is on the west side of the Bighorns in the Bighorn Basin. It's a pretty dry and hot climate. It's like um, so most of Wyoming is mountainous, high desert steppe kind of climate. Um, if you're not in the mountains, you're either in the plains on the east side, and then it quickly goes into like this steppe climate. I would say that the basin is pretty high in elevation for starters. I believe it's all above 5,000 feet, and it's pretty hot and dry for most of the year. So I would say it's as far as and why I'm putting out that information is because it's as far as an aging climate, it's pretty similar to Texas, um, southern, Oklahoma, some of those hot, dry climates. And what that's going to do is really ramp up your wood impact. When you got 106 degrees on a day or for 2 or 3, 4 months straight, and your humidity level is 20%, the humidity is what's going to drive water back into a barrel and decrease your proof, which is why, like, if you look at a lot of barrel proofs that are coming out of Kentucky, it might go into the barrel at 115, or maybe they'll barrel at 125 because they know after 10 years sitting in that barrel, the proof's going to drop because the water is going to get pushed into that barrel because it's a more humid climate. But when you're in a dry climate, the exact opposite happens. The water gets sucked out of that barrel, and so your proof goes up because your water comes out, thereby driving up your alcohol content, and decreasing the amount of liquid actually in the barrel. So you actually get less bottles out of each barrel. So they kind of plan for that. And so over there, you got a lot drier climate. So 10 years, I'd be curious to see what the barrel proof was on this stuff coming out of it. After 10 years in a barrel, I'd be very curious to see. In fact, I got some contacts. I could probably talk to them and find out if they know what the proof was before it got proofed down. So so they blended it together, and Nancy worked on blending the barrels, and then coming up with this 103.4 proof. The one thing that I don't see here is it does not say a barrel selected and batched a rich and balanced 10-year-old whiskey. It does not say how many barrels are in here, and it also does not say, like, it doesn't have a bottle count on here. Which when you're doing something that says limited edition, I think that's a really good marketing strategy, is to actually show how many bottles are going to be there. So maybe there's 1,000 bottles out there. Maybe there's 5,000 bottles. Maybe there's 10,000 bottles. Like, how limited is limited edition? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. That's something that I would like. But hey, let's get into this stuff. So 174.99 in Casper. Heard some really, really great things about this. Actually, a friend of mine here in town, he sells insurance for distilleries and actually works with the Distillery University. He works with one of the distilling courses in Kentucky. Once a month he'll fly down there and kind of give some seminars to new distillers that are going to start putting together distilleries about the insurance side of things. And he's good friends with all the people involved in this, and got to go to the actual release party in Jackson Hole a couple of months ago. I think it might have been in November. And sit down and enjoy this release with them. And he was telling me that he absolutely loved this stuff. So let's see what we get out of it. So on the nose, it's nice and soft. It's not spiky and pungent. 103 proof is not super high, but it's high enough that some whiskeys at 100 proof, you really get that ethanol in there. This one does not. It's very perfumey cherry. And really, that's what I'm getting in here. I get a couple subtle hints of brown sugar. But mostly, cherry blossom, fruit, floral. Very nice. It's a very dense cherry with a light hint of brown sugar in there. It's got really, really nice color. Like, that's a pretty dark color on it. 10 years in a dry climate, that's highly expected. You're going to expect a fairly high barrel impact. On the taste, ethanol kind of burns around the side of your tongue. Up front, I was too busy talking. Finish, nice graham cracker, a little bit of char, and a little bit of tannic oak in there. Not astringent, not over the top. Just a nice light oak finish in there. So the finish went, it was coming off of like this fruit sweet note, the cherry, and then it dropped into a really nice light graham cracker, and then a nice impact of oak. Let me get back into that. The flavor profile of that cherry is pretty solid all the way through. A nice fruit cherry, with brown sugar notes in there. I was not really thinking when I took that first sip, and so that first couple of beats in the beginning of that palate, I missed all of it, but it had really nice flavor. The density of each of the flavors is very nice, very pronounced, very distinct. It does not have it has a nice mid oily clinginess where it's there for just a little while, and then the very end of it, you get that nice dry wine kind of dries out your tongue kind of finish. I do enjoy that quite a bit. Um, it is a nice sipping whiskey for sure. Let's see if we can get the beginning part of that palate on a second. The nose has not changed. If anything, it went a little bit more brown sugar and a little less cherry, but it's pretty densely cherry, like cherry preserves with some cherry blossom in there, maybe a hinge of apple if you want to call it that. Very nice. Honey sweet forward, like wild honey, moves into a cherry. You pick up a little bit of oak in the very beginning, and then so it's like honey, a little bit of cherry, and as you pick up that cherry, you kind of get this medicinal cherry cough syrup, ethanol bite around the edges of your tongue. Um, in a very positive way, like not a nasty cough syrup kind of way, but in a very good way. Then it moves into a little bit of a brown sugar right after that. Then you pick up that graham cracker. So it's like brown sugar and cherry into this graham cracker, overlaid with a nice ethanol ding kind of pushing all the way through that peppery spice. So you get that graham cracker, and then it finishes with that oak, a really nice oak. Now, I thought I was going to say it was going to be really not really astringent, but had like a astringent ding at the end of it, because the one sip I had taken prior to, that's what I remember having. I'm not getting that here, where it's just this tannic astringency, but there is a tannic note, nice tannic oak in a pleasant way, not in a bad way. So, extremely nice, very well done. I do have to say that tannic note personally is not my favorite, and is the reason why I tend to shy away from higher age stated bourbons. So this is going to be a 16-year here that we're going to do. If you've ever had any of the Pappy lineup, now I've never had any of the younger stuff like the 10-year. I think there's an 8-year, maybe that's Rip Van Winkle. I'm not sure which are all which, but I've had the 15, the 20, and the 23. They're all over oaked in my opinion. Of the three, the 15 would be where I would tend to settle. To me, bourbon just gets too much oak with age. It's not like a scotch where it continues to get better, in my opinion. Now, if that's something you like, maybe you want to hang out in those higher age brackets, but that's not something that I'm looking for because it tends to get more astringent, or the oak itself takes over as the flavor profile, and it tastes, as I've said many times, like Pappy to me tastes like you're chewing on an oak stave. Not what I'm looking for. Um, and I think with this being in such a dry climate, 7 or 8 years probably would have been more in my wheelhouse of what I was looking for. But because it's blended out, um, depending on where those barrels were in the rick house for those 10 years, you probably get a multitude of flavor profiles. And so, as such, the oak that shows up in there is not very bitter and astringent, but it's a very nice oak. It's just not necessarily what I'm looking for in a whiskey. But thankfully for me personally, it's the smallest last little bit of finish on that whiskey, so it's not the biggest impact or the biggest part of the flavor profile. So I do actually enjoy it as an accent in this particular setting. It's just not something I generally looking for. Oh man, that time nose was all brown sugar, honey, brown sugar, cherry. That time it was a little more dry. The cherry's a little bit more dry on that as well. The oak took over in the tail end of that. You get a nice pepper spice mixed with that graham cracker. The complexity of this whiskey, quite nice. I think there's a fair bit here, worthy of exploring. If you can get your hands on this, I don't even know if it's currently for sale outside of Wyoming. I don't know this or not. I don't know what the distribution is on it. But if you can find it, and then you're willing to shell out some money, it's like I said, it's one of those bottles that if you're a big bourbon fan, b a big fan of Wyoming whiskey, it's probably worth having just because when it's gone, it's gone. It's kind of an interesting thing. I like it from that standpoint. $175, bit steep, maybe 100 and a quarter. I'm in, but you know what? My wife picked that out, so I'm not going to complain one bit. Really nice whiskey, and I actually would love to sit down and talk to Nancy and see what her reasonings were, or what. I don't know. I don't know who steered that committee. I don't know if the owners said, "Hey, we're looking for something that kind of goes along this because this is our flavor profile like that we like," or if they said, "Hey, Nancy, here's what we got, make something delicious out of all these barrels." I don't know. I have no idea what the process was there, but I'd be very interested in finding out. So maybe I'll do some digging, see if I can make some contacts, and see if I can get some information. If I do manage to pull that off, I'll come back, revisit this with some notes in hand, and I will give you the information as I see it or get it. And there you go. So, Wyoming Whiskey 10th Anniversary Edition, $175 in Casper, Wyoming. Check it out if you can. I think it's worth it. If you can see it on a shelf somewhere in a bar, definitely worth a pour. Something to sit with and enjoy, reminisce, and kind of explore. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you've had it, what you think of it, and what you can find it for in your area. And as always, check us out on BitChute, Rumble, and I guess YouTube if that's where you're at. Thanks for watching. You guys have yourselves a great day. We'll catch you in the next video where we're going to check out this Calumet Farm 16. Thanks for watching.